Okay, so for me, the important thing in a gathering like this is to hear from everyone. So this is what I propose to do. I want to make about a 1-minute statement connected to the impossible task. And then I want to make an argument with 5 parts. And then I want us all to talk. Okay, so here's my 1-minute or so statement. In discussions of Islamophobia, a controversial issue is whether American Muslims are fundamentally out of harmony with American ways. Sometimes much stronger language is used. I've heard many talk shows say, why do the Muslims hate America? Others contend that rather than being out of harmony with fundamental American ways, the correct way to understand the Muslim community in the United States, whether we're talking about individual Muslims who were born in the United States or abroad, the best way to understand American Muslims as a group is as the latest example of minority communities in the United States wanting acceptance by the American mainstream. Now, this is not to say that the American mainstream is eternal and not historically contingent. According to John Esposito, American Muslims, especially women, are quickly surpassing mainstream America in educational commitment and achievement. In a few minutes, I'm going to give some figures. And now I'm going to conclude this little statement with my own opinion based on my work with other Muslims. In fact, I think it is accurate to say that American Muslims are deeply committed to American democracy, freedom, and procedural democracy, and happily accept personal national responsibility as American citizens. The Muslim-majority countries are by and large mired in despotic rule, not unconnected to 300 years of colonialism, but nonetheless mired in despotic rule. And American Muslims are happy to be in a democratic country, even when that democracy allows American nativist racism to spout versions of Islamophobia. American Muslims tolerate even the disrespect of Islamophobia so long as American law is followed and it's merely words, not criminal activity. I think it's fair to say that American Muslims love the USA and are among its most staunchest defenders. Yes, there are a few Muslim criminals plotting death and destruction, fundamentalist lost souls who yearn for adult fantasies of their own making. But American Muslims will be the first to turn in such people to the authorities. I think it is not an overstatement to say that American Muslims cherish the USA and want to defend it at all costs. Typical American. Okay, here is my 5-part argument about what to do about our situation and how to move forward in ways which involve engagement, respect, and difficult but important talk. Okay, so here's my 5-point argument. Point 1, group prejudice of minority communities by individuals in majority groups get dramatically diminished or even entirely ended when such majority individuals get to know one or several persons from the disrespected minority group. Okay, this is common sense, but it's true. I mean, we need to keep reminding ourselves. That's number 1. Number 2, demographic changes in the United States. I'm a college professor. According to the Chronicle of Higher Education, I could give the reference to anyone who's interested. From 1990 in the United States to 1999, The number of African American students enrolled in American colleges and universities increased by 50%. The number of Native Americans almost doubled. The number of Latinos nearly tripled. The number of Asian Americans more than quadrupled. The number of international students more than doubled. The population of white students was unchanged. Okay, so depending on which demographer we believe, sometime around 2040, the United States is a white minority country. Okay, my third point. I had the privilege of working for 10 years at a historically black university in North Carolina. And what I discovered both there and at many historically black colleges and universities is that the gender population is such that it is approaching 67% women. Hispanic intensive institutions and tribal colleges are in many cases also more than 2/3 women. Historically white universities, though not at the same percentages, are moving in that direction. And so I say, America's leaders will increasingly become, as they are beginning to be now, women of color. How are we preparing for this change? Okay, my fourth point, and here I'm going to quote John Esposito, who seems to be here in references. Okay, this is a quote. Education is a priority for many Muslims who, after Jews, are the most educated religious communities surveyed in the United States. And I'm still quoting Esposito. 40% of American Muslims have a college degree or more, compared to 29% of the American population overall. 31% are full-time students in the United States, as compared to 10% of the general population of the United States. If you're interested, you can see John Esposito's book, The Future of Islam. Great book. Page 14. Okay, so put these four together. It means that what do we do about Islamophobia? What do we do with the inharmonies in our country? If you put these four together, I say what we do is prepare for an increasingly multiracial United States in which women of color are leaders in government, education, business, and political arenas. We need to prepare for that. How do we do that? And I can answer like this. We have to increase the chances for cooperation, for respect, for a recognition that no individual human being can be respected if that person's main identity group is not also respected. That is the main thing we have learned in the last generation in sociology, critical race theory, etc. I need to repeat that. It's so important. No individual human being in our country can be respected unless their principal identity group, whether it's a religion, race, etc., is not also respected. Okay, so given the gender realities that women are going to be leaders, that given the racial realities that the United States becomes a white minority country in about 2040, given the education commitments of American Muslims, given the fact that human beings who are in the majority tend to have positive relationships with formerly disrespected groups when there are significant relationships on the human level, put these all together, and I say we dramatically increase our chances for cooperation, for a shared faith in the United States, if we acknowledge that we're becoming dramatically more multiracial, and women finally are getting to be in charge, and that often these women are Muslim women. And so I say what we have to do is ask the following question of ourselves: in our workplaces, in our places of study, in our places of worship, in our places of socializing. And the question is very specific. I learned it when I was a consultant in a job interview about 10 years ago, and I use it in my teaching. And here's the question. And again, imagine if this were us. I'm talking to professionals who are imagining their next job interview. Imagine that you were asked this question in a job interview as the final question after the interview went well and people were thinking you might indeed be the woman or man to hire. How would you respond to this question? Quote, how do your racial identity and comfort level influence the people you work with or study with, especially the people of races other than your own, whom you might be called upon to supervise? Let me try that out once more. How do your racial identity and comfort level influence the people you work with or study with, especially the people of races other than your own, whom you might be called upon to supervise? I would say the way we engage each other and prepare for the profound transformations that are happening to our country connected to Islam and other minority groups is to pose and answer that question. And by the way, for anyone who's interested, I have a bunch of handouts here that show one way of doing that in educational work or civic settings. But that concludes what I have to say. So I hope that we can talk now.